Hi, welcome to Historic Eats, where I recreate recipes from the past and share the history of how they came to be. Well, it's almost St. Patrick's Day, so I thought it would be fitting to share with you a dish that has been historically served on St. Patrick's Day. So St. Pat's is famous for celebrations of food and drink and parades, and of course the color green. So this recipe is kind of an oleo of all of the most famous foods that have been served through the years to celebrate the holiday. This cheesy Irish potato and corned beef ring brings together, of course, potatoes, lots of sharp cheddar cheese, onions, cabbage, and corned beef. And it's completely encased in this flaky, cheesy crust that is touched with beer. It is absolutely divine. It's perfect as a side dish, or you can cut it in appetizer portions and serve it to a crowd. This channel is all about great recipes that have stood the test of time, and it shares the backstory of how they actually came to be. So click subscribe and stay tuned for more great recipes. Now there is a shortcut to this recipe. Instead of making the cheesy beer crust, you can substitute it with 2 tubes of crescent roll dough. All of the baking times and temperatures stay the same, but it will save you a little bit of time. If you do have the time, I would really encourage you to try to make the crust because it is delicious, and you could make it a couple days in advance and just keep it in the fridge. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. To begin the dough, I have 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 3/4 cup of cheddar cheese, shredded. And I'm just gonna lightly mix these together. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is add 1/2 of a cup of butter. This is not quite room temperature, but I left it sit out a little bit. And I'm just gonna begin cutting it in like I would for pie crust. Once the butter is pretty well incorporated and broken up into small, like pea-sized pieces, I can begin adding the beer. Now this is between 7 and 8 tablespoons of beer. And if you want to make it truly Irish, you could use Guinness. And continue just cutting it together. So this is still a little dry. I can tell that it's not going to hold together. So I'm going to begin adding more beer, a tablespoon at a time. And you really just want it to feel like pie crust. So that did the trick. All the little dry areas have been absorbed, and it's going to hold together nicely. So you just bring it into a ball. And wrap it in some plastic wrap and put it in the fridge for a minimum of 1 hour. It can even be in the fridge for a couple days if you don't want to use it right away. But it needs to chill for 1 hour before we can use it. Just wrap this up. To begin the filling, I have 1/4 of a head of cabbage, and I'm going to just cut this up fine, and it should yield about 2½ cups. Here at the stovetop, I have a skillet heating up on medium-high heat. I'm going to put in about 1 tablespoon of oil. And now that that's heated up, I'll add the cabbage right to it. And I'm going to just salt it and let it cook for about 5 minutes uncovered. Next, I'll make an herb sachet. I need 1 teaspoon of pickling spice, that I'm just going to put on this small piece of cheesecloth. Back over here at the stove, it's been just over 5 minutes and the cabbage is getting nice and tender. So now I'm going to put my herb sachet right in there and just enough water to cover all of the cabbage. I'm going to reduce the heat to low, put a lid on it, and it's going to cook for 20 minutes. To roast the vegetables, I'm just going to cover my baking sheet with foil and I'm going to put it in the oven and allow it to preheat in the oven up to 400 degrees. And once it comes to temperature and the pan is hot, we'll add the vegetables to it. Next, I'm going to chop up the vegetables. I have 1.5 potatoes. You can use just one really large potato, but my potatoes weren't very big, so I'm using 1.5. And then we need 1/2 cup of onion, so 1 small onion or like 1/2 of a medium. And the potatoes, I'm going to cut really thin into just thin slices. And the onion, I'm just going to dice. Once those are all cut up, I'm just going to combine them together in a bowl and cover them with another tablespoon or 2 of oil. I have 1/2 pound of deli corned beef. You can definitely use a corned beef roast, but you only need 1/2 pound, and so I just felt that the deli meat was more convenient. So I'm just going to cut this up into small little squares, like 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch. So my oven just finished preheating, which means my pan has come to temperature also. So now while it's hot, be very careful and just add a couple tablespoons of oil to the foil. And make sure you use a hot mitt because, like I said, the pan is really hot, and just spread the oil around. And then add the potato and onion to about 2/3 of the pan. And just spread that out into a thin layer. And then take the corned beef pieces and add that to the other third. And spread that out as best you can. And this goes back into the oven for 15 minutes. So the cabbage cooked for 20 minutes. I just poured it into a colander. You can just discard the sachet of herbs. And I'm just going to set this aside and let it cool, and we'll go ahead and start on our cheese. Ireland is known for their sharp cheddar cheese. So I have an 8-ounce brick here that I'm just going to go ahead and grate. And once it's fully grated, it should yield about 2 cups of cheese. I just pulled the vegetables out of the oven. I actually left them in there for 20 minutes. I just am looking for a little bit of browning on the edges of the potatoes. So I'll just set these aside to cool. I pulled my dough out of the fridge. I covered my surface with flour. Next, I'm just going to divide it in half. And I'm going to begin rolling it out. I'm looking to roll it out to about 10 by 16 inches. I want to get 8 triangles out of each part of the dough for a total of 16 triangles. I covered a pizza pan with foil, and I'm just going to spray it with some nonstick spray. And I have a small dish that has about a 3-inch diameter. You could also use a coffee mug, and you just want to put it right in the middle. It's just a guide. So what you'll do is start taking your triangles and put the fat side in the middle and just kind of like rest it against the glass. And you're going to make like a sunshine and overlap the dough as you go. I'm sorry, I had a recording issue, so I wasn't able to demonstrate in order how I did this. But once I had everything laid out like a sunshine, the first thing I did was layer down almost all of the cheese. Then I put a ring of the cabbage down, then the potatoes and onions. Then I did finally the corned beef and a little bit more cheese on top. So now what you're going to do is take the points and just fold them over and tuck them underneath the center of the ring. And it doesn't have to be perfect, you just want to secure them. Okay, and then once everything is all tucked in nice and neat, you just take one beaten egg and do an egg wash over the whole surface. So this is ready to go. I'm going to put it right in the 375-degree oven for 20 to 25 minutes.
St. Patrick is credited for bringing Christianity to Ireland, but his story didn't begin there. In fact, he wasn't even Irish. St. Patrick was born in the 4th century in Roman Britain, and his name was Maewyn Succat. He was kidnapped at the age of 16 and shipped to Northern Ireland, where he was sold as a slave. There he worked tending animals for 6 years. During this time, his faith grew, and he prayed continually. An angel appeared to him and told him he'd be returning to his home country and to go to the coast where he'd find a ship. He did just that and returned to his family in Britain. Shortly thereafter, he went on to France to study his faith, and after 15 years he was ordained and given the name Patricius. He was again visited by an angel, urging him to return to the Irish people to bring them the message of Christianity. He wrote that he owed his time in Ireland to his faith, and he felt compelled to return there to repay the blessing. Rather than green, St. Patrick was known for wearing blue, and he used a 3-leaf shamrock to convey the concept of the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. His knowledge of Ireland's language and customs well equipped him for sharing the message, and thousands of Irishmen and women were converted and baptized by the time of his death on March 17, 461 AD. The Irish began observing St. Patrick's Day in the 10th century, and it became an official feast day by 1631. It was celebrated with religious feasts and services in honor of the saint. Popular dishes included cabbage and pork, soda bread, Irish stew, apples, and shepherd's pie. Falling right in the middle of Lent, the day was a reason to celebrate and take a break from the restraints and abstinence of Lent. Later on in Ireland, the potato blight of 1845 caused 1 million Irishmen and women to lose their lives and another 2 million to flee Ireland. Nearly 25% of the total Irish nation immigrated to America at this time, making it the largest single population movement of the 19th century. Although St. Patrick's Day celebrations were not new to America, the new flood of Irishmen and women made the celebrations that much more. The holiday took on a theme of revering Irish heritage and culture. Parades and festivities ensued, and feasts including all the traditional dishes, and even the addition of a new one, corned beef, a popular Irish-American adaptation. St. Patrick's Day celebrations never slowed down, and today in Ireland and the U.S., delicious food, green rivers, shamrock decor, and beer will abound this March 17th. So give this cheesy Irish potato ring a try. It's full of historic Paddy's Day flavors. And happy St. Patrick's Day.
Okay, it's been 25 minutes. I just pulled this out of the oven and it is browned and bubbly and melty inside and it smells delicious. I'm just going to let it cool here on the counter for a few minutes and then I'll be able to cut it and we can serve it. Well, now it's time for the best part. It's finally cooled down enough to eat it. So I don't know if you can see, but it has lots of flaky layers. You can see the corned beef, the potatoes, lots of cheese in there, and just a nice layer of onions and cabbage. And I like to serve it with Thousand Island dressing. I just bought this from the grocery store and it's perfect. It is so good. I think you'll really like it. The onions and the cabbage are really mild in it. So even if you have some picky eaters in your family, they probably won't mind it at all. I know my kids eat it and I didn't tell them there was cabbage in it. I just said there was vegetables in it and they inhaled it. So it's very, very good. Cheesy, just yummy. Makes you think of St. Patrick's Day for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining me and happy St. Patrick's Day in advance. Remember to click subscribe and tune back in. I have some other videos already posted and I have a bunch more that I'm working on. So I hope to see you again soon. Until next time, bye-bye.